Hi, my name is Hyeonsu Kang, and today I'll be presenting our Tokai invited paper titled Augmenting Scientific Creativity with an Analogical Search Engine. This was a collaboration project with Qian, Tom Hope, Dafna, Shahaf, Joel Chen, and Aniket Kittur. To motivate this research, consider an example of successful analogical inspiration in science, which used to be a 50-year-old challenge in aerospace engineering. And that is the problem of how do we transfer a large number of solar arrays into the space for use by telescopes, satellites, and others. One solution might be to make the cells themselves lighter, another to build a bigger rocket, but an astrophysicist working at NASA at the time happened to be an origami expert as well, and he recognized the deeper structural similarity between folding origami papers and transporting and deploying large solar arrays into space, despite the obvious surface level differences. This kind of recognizing deeper structures, despite the surface level differences, is what we term analogical processing. And analogical inspirations in sciences are rare, partly because analogical processing is difficult. One reason is it's difficult is human memory is really sensitive to surface similarity, which leads us to favor near analogs. And analogical processing that involves just a few relations at once can incur a heavy cognitive load and tax our working memory. In addition to that, the number of research papers is growing exponentially, and the specializations are getting deeper and deeper, making no single person to be an expert across many domains to make the connections. So in this project, we tackled whether development of an analogy search engine that moves beyond surface similarity and processes relations between many papers in various domains at once is a feasible achievement. This is challenging because one, there's a lack of data, which means no large corpus of gold standard analogical inspirations exists. At the same time, there's too much data with exponentially growing literatures and deepening specializations, making the connection forming challenging. There's also the complexity involved in the scientific research that makes analogical processing naturally more difficult than other previous domains, such as product innovation. And finally, there's a big time and resource commitment required to actualize these inspirations. The incentive structures may work against analogical inspirations and make an evaluation of success tricky. Given these difficulties, we thought a successful first step towards supporting analogical inspirations in science was to build an analogy search engine for sciences that find structurally aligned papers, specifically papers that match on similar purpose as the query. Matching on the purpose and diversifying by mechanisms was previously shown to be a powerful strategy for facilitating creative adaptation in products and help scientists basically come up with creative adaptation ideas using the search results. So our measure of success is facilitation of creative adaptation over direct application ideas, but what counts as creative adaptation or direct application? To define these types, let's consider an example of heat transfer in semiconductors focusing on interfacial thermal conductance. Here, paper A has a similar purpose to transferring heat, but it looks at more directly controlling thermal metallic contact conductance. This may be a novel idea, but something that's more familiar to the user, and the user can also anticipate the direct application out of it. So this is an example of direct application. On the other hand, paper B uses different fin structures to deal with this heat transfer problem. Though this is not exactly a familiar domain to the scientist, she can understand the gist of it and come up with a different idea, which is to design nanofin structures for semiconductor walls. So characterized by the novelty and uncertainty, this is an example of creative adaptation. So our first probe system combined AI with human filtering to find structurally aligned papers and empirically examine whether facilitating creative adaptation ideas with search results was visible. To do that, we cross-sourced purpose and mechanism annotations for 2,000 papers to train a sequence-to-sequence tagger, which extracted purpose and mechanism tokens from a paper abstract. Then we applied this model to over 2 million paper abstracts to predict purpose and mechanisms, embedded the extract purpose text to create a nearest neighbor search similarity index for search. Using the similarity index, when the user query arrived at the engine, we first embedded the query with the same encoder, then searched through the index to find near purposes. We realized that due to noise in the purpose extraction phase and the similarity embedding, There were results that were obviously too far to be useful in the control experiment, which we used the human filtering step to remove. Using the output of the AI plus human filtering pipeline, we ran a controlled experiment comparing the analogical search engine with a more conventional scholarly search engine using BM285 keyword search to find out the benefits and challenges. We created a blended list of analogical and keyword search papers and asked the participants to read each result blind to condition to brainstorm new research ideas. Thus, the main data source consists of 267 transcribed think alouds of brainstorming from 8 participants, which 2 coders coded into 4 types of ideation outcome and 3 degrees of purpose match. The middle level purpose match, denoted here as part, indicated that the idea had similar high-level purpose but differed on low-level purposes. Okay, so for the first result, we looked at whether analogy papers facilitated creative adaptation over direct application. We compared the analogical papers to keyword search papers, and creative adaptation ideas were 2.6 times more frequent among the analogical search papers than keyword search papers, while most of the direct application ideas were associated with keyword papers. So analogical papers were more associated with creative adaptation ideas, but how does matching on purpose affect the ideation outcome? We found that the degree of purpose match mediated how the condition of a paper affected the creative adaptation ideation outcome. Specifically, partial, meaning low-level purpose mismatches, resulted in creative adaptation ideas more often in analogical search papers than keyword search papers. And looking into the relationship between ideation outcome and the degree of purpose match in the keyword search condition, when their purpose fully matched, 70% of the ideation outcome was the direct application type, while direct application ideas were only 6% among the partial purpose match papers. As a purpose mismatch increased, the frequency of creative adaptation ideas also increased in the keyword search condition, as expected. But when comparing the partially matching analogical versus keyword search papers, the frequency of creative adaptation ideas was more than double among the partially mismatching analogical search papers. However, partially mismatching the purpose can be a double-edged sword, depending on how it mismatches. This may facilitate creative adaptation or render the analog completely useless. So this led us to study what the challenges involved with knowing which mismatches were beneficial to creative adaptation, answers to which have implications for facilitating useful misalignments for ideation. So to understand the challenges in the process, we conducted interviews with participants and thematically coded the transcripts. The first challenge was related to discovering salient structural elements. When connecting with papers in different domains, participants recognized that their problems may be represented at different levels, but it was not always clear how to express the problem in advance. For example, the combination of structural elements or attributes sometimes resulted in an unintended intersection of domains. P3 said she felt like she was tricking the machine when using popular search engines because combining the terms like thin film and pressure often led to solid thin films in manufacturing. But what she's actually interested in were liquid, not solid thin films in the domain of heat transfer. Importantly, researchers had to see papers with mismatching structures to know which attributes were important and refine their problem representation accordingly. For example, after seeing a bunch of results related to all different aspects of the problem, such as the coding material, size, interface, and fabrication process, etc., the P6 realized that these were all important aspects that he didn't think of before that distinguish between the domain he's interested in from the rest. The second challenge was related to supporting superpositions of mismatches with just the right amount of variation to find useful diversity in the result. For example, looking for only the exact purpose matches may lead to missed opportunities, as P1 said here, even though fins represented an idea in a different scale for transferring heat, which prevented her from proactively searching for them. But having been exposed to paper about fins forced her to think about novel designs for semiconductor walls. But at the same time, too much deviation can make the papers useless. To conclude, we have investigated the opportunities and challenges involved with building an analogy search engine for scientific papers. Our human plus AI analogy search engine found novel papers that facilitated creative adaptation ideas, while purpose match mediated the effect of condition on the ideation outcome with some low-level mismatches in analogical search papers, leading to more creative ideas. We also identified challenges involved with knowing what mismatches were beneficial to creative adaptation. Challenge 1 found the iterative nature of discovering salient structural elements. Scientists may be able to specify what aspects of the structure were important only after seeing examples of mismatching structures. Challenge 2 found the difficulty of supporting superpositions and mismatches with just the right amount. While too much deviation may break the analysis, too little mismatches may not be sufficient to facilitate creative adaptation and ideation.